All right, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. I hope you're doing well wherever you are joining us from. We always try to do this show at 12 noon EST because we can cover from 9 a.m. in California all the way till 9 p.m. in India, and we have awesome people joining us from all over the world. So let me go ahead and start saying something very, very important. Today's lecture and today's discussion with Professor Cox, which I'm going to have the honor to introduce in a couple of minutes. So, hey, Monica.
Hi.
This topic, I am looking forward in the next hour to learn. I'm looking forward to hear with an open mind, with an open spirit, to understand and to educate myself on how I can be better in making sure that social justice in engineering is something that I own it and I participate in it. So, Professor Cox, how are you doing this afternoon?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me. This is a delight. I feel it. At some point, we need to talk about how we connected.
Yeah, absolutely, it will be my pleasure. So, as people are logging in, and I can see the people saying good morning to us and hello from India, fascinating topic from all over the world. So let's go ahead and get started with our conversation. And I'm going to switch the view to this side. And so, what is it that we're talking about today?
So, we are going to talk about social justice in engineering and really whose responsibility it is. And I'm going to present this topic because many people, as you kind of alluded to before, don't really connect social justice and engineering. Engineering is the technical thing. We focus on building and constructing and designing, but what role does social justice have in it? So today I'm going to talk about that and hopefully have an engaging conversation.
Awesome. I'm looking forward for that. I guess that we're going to start with a little video that you wanted me to play at the start. So we're going to go ahead and start with that.
Now, may I add just one thing about that though?
Yes, please go ahead.
About that video. So it is. So we just want to cue it up. It's actually the Black Engineering Faculty Speak video. Yes, that one. So let's just pause it for just a moment because I want to say that this video is actually engineering faculty, and it was developed by people after the murder of George Floyd in May. And one of our engineering faculty, Dr. Leroy Long, wrote a poem, and people just rallied around that and wanted to express how we as engineers felt as Black engineers. So I wanted to preface that and say these are real people, real engineers, not actors, but people who are completely passionate about this topic. Thank you.
All right, let's go ahead and play the video.
I'm Black with a PhD, but I still could have died by a million. I am George Floyd.
I've succeeded using my head, but I still could have been shot in bed. I am Breonna Taylor.
I think teaching and learning is fun, but I can get killed by out on the run. I am Lamont Aubrey.
I'm a hidden finger step who puts my hood on, like Trayvon.
And can't be stopped, like Sandra Bland. All racism, I do condemn.
I engineer like Imhotep, but my black skin I can't sidestep.
I can't breathe. I'm Eric Garner. This is not a game. I'm Tamir Rice.
What if I'm next? Then it's hashtag Denise R. Simmons.
If it's hashtag Leroy Long, I am Laquan McDonald. I am Ayanna Stanley Jones. I am Walter Scott.
I am Katherine Johnson, Philando Castile, Alberta Sproul, and Samuel DeBose.
We will not be silent.
It is our turn to have a say.
So on behalf of the STEM community, this is what Black STEM faculty like us have to say.
It says PhD outside of our office doors, but we still get mistaken for janitors.
And we love our custodians. There's no hierarchy when it comes to Black labor. They allowed us to get where we are.
Say something back, speak up and speak out. Then we get blacklisted or just get kicked out.
Love to teach, only to get called bad names. Names they wouldn't own if you called them out.
Love to do research,
But it's only safe if we sell out.
don't research Black or shout.
Keep the faith.
Black Lives Matter.
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 Black Lives.
Matter.
I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day, I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for all we need is love. And for that we got each other. That we got each other. We will rise, we will rise, we will rise. Whoa. I'll rise up, I like the day, I'll rise up, in spite of the hate, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again.
All right, this is very a very strong statement, and I like fully and completely understand the message that you were trying to say. So let's get started into the conversation and some of the charts we have, and talk a little bit about how we can change this, because this is what matters. Is if at the end of today's discussion there is one take that we can have to enhance myself as a person and the people that are listening to us, this would be a successful discussion. So, I mean, we've seen you in the video very clearly. You are a prominent voice for Black in engineering. However, it's important to highlight you're a very successful professor. You mentioned it would be interesting to say how we connected. We've connected, like in my brain, the first time that pings me is when you posted something saying that we are stepping outside of our comfort zone to speak up, to say our opinion, to say what we're thinking. And this is what sparked me, that little post you did, I don't know when, long ago, and I connected with you and we started the discussion. But you are the inaugural chair of the Department of Engineering Education at Ohio State. You're a professor. God knows how much it's hard to get to the professor status with all the requirements. You're the CEO of Steminent for educational and media offerings, and your research is all over. You've tried to, and I've seen your book from Wiley, from different places. You're trying to make sure to break barriers for women, for all type of barriers, and we try to break them. And look at this number, approximately $15 million of multidisciplinary projects with over 130 publications. This is just awesome. So I'm really honored that you are on today's talk. So this is the outline of what we're talking about. It is what does an anti-racist university looks like. the take initiative, and then we're gonna go to like your proposal to sign the call to action. So what does an anti-racist university look like? What is it that we're looking for in here?
Yeah, so I want to say that I am referencing, excuse me, the Black in Engineering, which is kind of the social justice arm of the video piece that you saw, the Black in Engineering's call to action. So to make the connection between the video and what I'm talking about today is that, you know, we wanted to present kind of a media perspective, but we also wanted to give people something that they could use in engineering, particularly within colleges of engineering. So we wanted to not just have blank statements. Like after the George Floyd murder, many people said, we support Black Lives Matter. We believe in dismantling systemic racism. But we thought as faculty who have lived this life that we wanted to provide collectively insights and suggestions that could supplement the documents that have been created by people, many who may not have Black administrators, faculty, or staff who are offering input into the statements that are being made. So that's the preface. And now let me talk a little bit about the language that we used. In developing this statement, and I want to acknowledge that it was co-led by a couple of faculty, Dr. Cullen Buie, who is at MIT, and Dr. Audrey Bowden, who is at Vanderbilt University. Like, of the people who engaged, maybe of the 50 faculty, they championed this effort. And the language that we as a community wanted to talk about was anti-racism. And if I could just once again see that view once again, thank you. I just wanted to point just a few things. Like, we want to make sure that we acknowledge the historical issues that have occurred within universities and societies. And so it means admitting that there's a problem, recognizing and admitting that systemic racism exists, which it does everywhere. We also want people to understand that they are biased. Like, we are all biased, but you have to make a deliberate effort to unlearn those biases. Next, we want to, in focusing on students, not place blame on students because of their identities or because they came from a certain high school or because they may not understand some of the nuances within the university system or an organizational system. So many times we see that when those are excuses as to why we don't see more diversity. Well, students weren't prepared. They came from a place where they don't meet the rigor of this organization, and we're not going to use that as an excuse anymore. I'll continue on the next slide, please.
So I have a couple of questions. So the first one is, there is something in here that says examine our biases and begin to unlearn them. The process of unlearning is very, very, very challenging. Is there like a case study or something you can like talk about, something that someone told you, hey, this was a bias, very clear, that I had, and I've unlearned it during a certain way? Because it's very, very challenging. I mean, we grow up, very, 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 very honestly and transparency. And if we want this to be useful, we have to remove all layers and speak up what's in our hearts. And how do you unlearn something? I've grown. I'm almost 40 years old. So, and there is something, old dogs cannot learn new tricks. So I'm getting to the old dog status. And how do you unlearn something?
Yeah, well, I think that this goes into areas of probably cognitive science when you think about it, and in learning theory. And I think that you have to, it goes back to, first of all, wanting to, like, there's the awareness stage, I believe. And then I think once you are aware, you have to have a desire to want to unlearn. And then I think it's very similar to how we, like when you think about exercising or you think about habits, you're very consciously thinking about the actions that you do. and how that impacts people. And so, I think many times accountability works, and there's a vulnerability as well. So there's a vulnerability in saying, I'm not really great at this, or I need help with this. But there's also that piece of having people around you hold you accountable when you demonstrate that you're still operating in that way that that demonstrates your bias. So I think that's why it's also important for voices, underrepresented voices, or Black voices in this case. I'll use that as an example as a Black person. And so note that I will continue to say Black throughout this presentation. If we are talking about issues facing Black people, then you probably need to have a Black person who is willing to tell you when you are engaging in behaviors that maybe aren't appropriate. And I want to clarify that a little bit, because I know that there's often this inclusion tax and cultural tax where people would say, we need to fix things for Black people, so get the one Black person to come and do all the work. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you're giving that person permission to call you out if and when your biases are showing and it's somehow not moving the work forward.
This is awesome. This is a very important point, that basically allowing discussion to happen. So being willing and also allowing discussion to happen and understanding that this is very, very important.
May I say one more thing? And one thing I'm going to say is that this is not comfortable work. This is not something like, picking flowers and saying it's beautiful. Like when you see yourself, or when someone tells you that you need to change, or they bring correction, it might be really uncomfortable. And you just have to really believe that it's coming from a constructive place, because conversations of race are hard in the US, really difficult. And so we just have to realize that we are not going to undo things overnight, and we just have to bit by bit get there.
I'm gonna be a little bit pushy in here, and I'm gonna speak out my mind. So I understand what you said. I really, really, really understand what you said, that we cannot undo things overnight.
Mm-hmm.
But I am challenged why we can do certain things overnight. Like when you see certain injustice, and it is clearly an injustice, why do I need to be, oh, sweetheart, don't take your time? No, it has to be, the truth is the truth. There is no gray in the truth. The truth is very bright. It is what it is. And if there is injustice, this is what I believe in. If there is injustice, I should be willing to say, I apologize, I did something wrong, and to move on and accept this. And it has to happen overnight, because I think at one point things need to, another aspect of our discussion is, for example, like in the engineering world, we only have, in my department, one female faculty, and we are 30 something faculty. And every time we want to hire, like I am like, why are we still not understanding that we are misrepresenting 50% of our population is not represented? So how can we take decisions that fits everyone if we don't hear the other side? So although I understand your point,
mm-hmm.
I think people needs to start embracing change on a rapider scale so that we get where we need to get.
Right. And you know what? The words that came to me, there are two words that have come out. One is fear, and maybe three words. I would say fear, control, and power. And when I think from an individual perspective, we can have our values and we can say, I'm going to speak up. But the reason that we're talking about systemic racism is because of that system part. And it's not just about us. And so, people are often afraid to say certain things because the system because there are so many people and there are consequences within a system. And I want to even bring that back to what we're saying about universities. Universities are a system with certain policies and processes. You look at promotion and tenure, for example, like there are consequences for everything that you do. And I think because when you move in one direction, that influences the system in a different direction. That is what makes things hard, because everything is not flowing the same way. And one push is going to impact everything else. And I think, sometimes when you're thinking about difficult conversations like race, you you hope that you're not the casualty. I think there are people who would say, am I the casualty? Am I the one who's going to get penalized because I said too much? Am I the one because I didn't say enough? And I think as a result, it's almost like a bell curve. The majority of the people are kind of neutral. It's like, hey, if I don't push too much, then I can kind of keep my position. I can move forward. I can still play. I can respect it. People on the end, those are the ones that are kind of the outliers. And based on what you're saying, like, you are bold, you are doing this technology, you are allowing me to talk on your platform about this issue. Like, you are a mover, and that's courageous. But everyone is not courageous either. So that's another thing. Do not assume courage. As Brene Brown would say, everyone who's out there is not going to protest. They're not going to blatantly say what they believe.
Yeah, it is what everything you're saying. I agree with you a lot on it. I want to say that what you mentioned about me, I'm gonna frame it in a different way. It's not courage for me. I want to say I have a desire every day. If I move 0.01 better version from when I woke up to before I sleep, that's my desire. And to do that, you have to open up and speak and discuss, because you cannot get better if you stay with your own little cocoon and just talk with the same people, not knowing what's outside in the world. So there is tons of feedback coming to us. So I'm gonna put some questions, and we're going to say hi to a couple of people. So we have a lot of folks joining us from India. Dr. Al Najm is saying good morning to all of us. There is a person from Turkey who's saying Volkan, hi to us. Dante Rodriguez, he's my student, so I'm so excited that he's listening to us, and I'm his advisor as well. So hello, Dante, back to you. Omar Abdi is saying it is sad that in 2020, Black people professionals are still seeking recognition, equal treatment, and safety from their fellow countrymen. BLM forever. So Omar is endorsing what we're saying. We have a question from Sanesh. I've been trying to find some good books on this topic. Bell Hooks has been excellent, but I'm curious about something specific to changes in STEM. Could you please make some recommendations?
You know what? In STEM, in terms of books, there are a lot of academic books that you'll find. Let me look. Like, even in on my table, I have certain things, but one that was co-authored by one of my colleagues. Let me see how to get this. One is Diversifying STEM, and these are just some examples. So one of my colleagues, Ebony McGee, William Robinson. I have this one here. This one's not STEM, but it's talking about women of color and white women in conversation. So by Karen Dace, Unlikely Allies in the Academy. And so go to some of the academic press areas and look for that as well. I also want to give you a website that sounds funny, but it has so many resources. And it's called yourblackfriendsarbusy.com.
Yourblackfriendsarbusy.com.
Exactly. Because everyone
to type it down
to Black people and say, like, well, can you do this? Can you tell me this? And so I don't know who created that, but it's
did I get it right? Can you see I just typed it on the screen. Did I get it right?
Black friends are busy. Yes. If somebody can test that, make sure that that's right. But yes, that's it. And there's a section on resources, I think, in books and articles. So you could just really go in there and see some stuff as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So Sanesh, if you have more questions, you can connect directly to Professor Cox. We have amazing topic from Fazal Fatimi. Sinti Dega is saying this is a great initiative, this discussion. Andrew from ACMA, he's saying many of the lack of barriers in my time in military taught me people working together can overcome are expressed by Mrs. Cox. So he's endorsing what you're saying, and he followed it up with another comment that all systems and institutions struggle to change.
Sure.
And this is what we're going to be talking about. Odori, another University of South Carolina students, is saying thank you for the discussion. We have from across the Atlantic, Atif saying hello from Tunisia. So you can see you can see, and actually Sanish responded to your comment on your Black friends are busy, and he said that's a perfect name. Thank you so much. So let's go back a little bit to some of the things we wanted to talk about. So
yeah, so this is just continuing, like, what do we mean, when we're talking about an anti-racist university? And it's also acknowledging, applauding, and rewarding the work that we do to build and to improve our institutions. And so I think it's not assuming that we're there to be like the diversity hires and the people who are just trying to fix the issues. But, if we are contributing, then we want to be compensated as such and recognized as such. Also, looking back at instructors, we want to make sure that classroom environments are inclusive for all of our students, for students maybe who bring different perspectives. It's important for an anti-racist university to put that structure in place, because if you see students coming in, like, they're focused on their education. They're not there thinking about the racial dynamics that are happening among faculty and with the administration and the resources and the GTAs who may or may not have been exposed to diversity. That's not what they're focused on. We want our students to focus on learning, and an anti-racist university does that. Also, from an administrative perspective, you're going to hear me talk about this numerous times, but it's committing resources and people. It's not just a lot of talk. It's not just the free stuff, but it's saying that if this is important to me, I'm going to put some money into it. I'm going to give you some space. I'm going to hire some personnel. I'm going to do what it takes to make sure that we are demonstrating our commitment to anti-racism and to dismantling systemic racism. And then finally, once again, I told you I'm talking about this from the perspective of Black faculty, staff, students. But Black members of the university will be welcomed as full participants and not treated as tokens. And tokens are the photos. I was just talking to someone this morning. If you have one Black woman, that one Black woman should not be on every brochure in your organization. She should not be the face of the university, the face of the alumni page, the face of instruction. Like, don't do that. That's using that person as a token because you're trying to say that your diversity efforts are better than they are. So don't use our bodies, our images, our presence to try to tell a story that's not true. That's what being an anti-racist university is.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we have some principles to look for: attitude, clarity, commitment and resources, personal accountability, and institutional accountability.
Yes. And
I
if you
want to ask you a question. Yeah,
go back. Yes.
So how do you feel about, the University of South Carolina is, I forgot the name of the gentleman. We just hired like a diversity officer, someone who is really in charge of what we're talking about. How do you feel about universities committing resources and creating these positions?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about this too, because I have thought about this so much. One, I want to applaud universities for recognizing that those positions are needed. But I want to say that you have to make sure that you're not putting someone in that position to do the work that everyone should do.
Okay.
I think so often people will hire someone, like say it's a black man, a Latina, and it's like, now those are your problems. We know we have bad numbers. We know that students are not happy. We know that we need to do stuff, and it's like, go and fix it. But it's not that person's responsibility. There are leaders who are in positions of power, and I'm going to talk about it, from the president, the provost, the deans, the department chairs. They are all responsible for that as well. The second thing I want to say about what I think about people hiring diversity officers is that you have to give them money. You cannot just give someone like an honorific title and not give them funds to do the work. So for all the things that I talked about previously, if we realize that there are issues with instruction in the classroom and how students are engaging, then you need to commit some type of resource. Is that some type of training? Is that a person who's going to come in and do something? Is it, money to try and transform something? Like, you have to put resources there. People, otherwise you're just having a lot of conversations, and conversations don't change people only at a university. I would say you can have philosophical conversations, but change comes with commitments and commitments.
So actually, the exact position that the University of South Carolina just initiated, and he's the first person to handle it, it's Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And it is Julian Williams that joined us in this. He's been here for, I think, a couple of months only. All right. So
I want to acknowledge a couple of people too. You'll see her in the chat. One is Dr. Tahira Reed-Smith, who's one of the co-founders of Black in Engineering, and Dr. Carlotta Berry is another co-founder. I don't think she's with us today, but she's also going to provide, I think, some resources for people too. So she's one of my partners in justice, as I say. So good to see you. Thank you for coming.
Can I have the tag one of your partners in justice as well?
Oh, absolutely. Hashtag partners in justice. All of us. People used to say partners in crime. And I'm like, no, I am like John Lewis. This is not a crime. This is good trouble. And this is justice. So we are partners in justice.
That's awesome. So there is a comment from Omar Abdi. Indeed, student or not, it's always important to have a staff member or responsible person who understands your problem without judging your color, your societal status, and I want to add to it anything else, like zero judgment, whatever it is. So there is Prof Cox.
You know who that is? That's my husband.
All right.
He's on his lunch break, so all the people, hey, Ishma, thank you for joining.
That's awesome. Resources are invested to bring in Black faculty, but resources aren't continued. Keep them. The investment must continue beyond the recruitment phase. We have a hello from Austria in Europe, and there is a question that was not completed by Ashley Ford. If you can complete the question, I'll be more than happy that we add it. All right, so
we can go through these principles really quickly. So if we could go back, we already talked about it a little bit. So what is it that, continuing the conversation of an anti-racist university, the first one was talking about attitude. So the previous slide just said, we want to acknowledge that systemic racism occurs. Let's stop denying it. So that's the foundation. Next, we want to talk about clarity. So for this example, I'm talking about anti-Black racism. But for anything that you're talking about, don't just clump diversity into diversity. Like, you could talk about gender diversity. You could talk about sexual orientation. You could talk about anything. But when we're talking about anti-racism in this perspective, we want people to understand we are talking about issues that are facing Black people. I'm talking about Black in engineering, very specific right now.
All right.
Next, institutional accountability. So this comes back to stuff that we talked about too, making sure that the resources are being contributed as needed. And we want to talk about measurable goals. Once again, we don't want this theoretical, philosophical accountability, but how do we know that we are moving toward becoming anti-racist? How do we know that we are dismantling systemic racism? And I think, in all those action plans and statements that people had, we need some measurable goals. We are going to commit $2 million to the creation of a diversity center that explores these issues. For example, we are going to hire 5 faculty in engineering 5 senior faculty in engineering who can serve in leadership positions across departments. Those are measurable goals. And the last point that I think is important about this is that you don't stop until it's done. You don't stop until you succeed. You don't stop because you're tired. You don't stop because we no longer have protests or because we don't have pressure from alums, you continue the work until it's done. That's what this means from an institutional perspective.
And you continue the work after it's done to make sure it stays.
Yes, sustainability is so important. This is not a hit it and quit it type thing. And then the personal accountability, we talked about biases. And so every member of the academic community has to do this, and it can't be outsourced. Oh, I just need to say this. I feel this one so hard. I need to say this with some strength and some passion.
Go for it. I'm going to give you, I'm going to put you full screen. Go for it.
Thank you. I feel like I'm preaching it like you're my congregation. You're like, go for it. Yes. So you cannot outsource this to a committee. What do I see? OMG, as soon as everyone heard that something needed to be done, people wanted to say, oh, we're starting a task force. We're starting a committee. And most of the people who are probably on that committee are people who already know about the issue and people who already are overworked, working, outside of this system to get things done. So we're talking about not just automatically trying to outsource it, but saying if you are a department chair, if you're a provost, or if you're dean, it's like, what is my accountability? What power do I have? Who am I meeting with every day? And how can I present this topic to someone in a way that moves this needle and changes this organization so that this racism is dismantled? That's what you do. It's not anyone else's problem. It's yours. As a leader, that is what leadership is about. If you have systemic racism, it is the responsibility of the president, of that provost, of the dean to look at people and say, and to really apologize. I apologize that I have allowed this to occur in this organization. I apologize that there are people in my organization who somehow feel that they are less than. I apologize that we have situations that are not equitable. That's on leadership. And that's what a real leader is. And a lot of people are not being real leaders. And once they do that, we might start to see some changes that we're talking about in this document.
This is awesome. I'm glad I gave you the full screen. So I mean, there's so much energy, and it's actually echoed by a lot of people on the chat, like take ownership and stop giving lip service, and let's not have distrust, and don't pass the bucks, and stop task forces. So this is very, very important. I want to make a shout out to Professor Alain Bernard. He was the president of my PhD jury 13 years ago in France.
Wow.
He means a lot to me. Like he's one of my mentors in life, and he really, really means a lot to me. And this is the first time ever I see him on my LinkedIn Live. I've been doing this for quite some time, and he says this is a very important topic to be discussed, and warm regards from France. So I wanted to shout out to Professor Bernard on this.
Thank you. Yes. So let's change the world together. I like that.
Let's do that.
Thank you.
So basically, commitment and resources. We're talking about make sure we commit funds.
Yeah.
We stop creating committees and so on. We empower people, and we eliminate empty written and spoken statements. So this is very, very important. So what are your recommendations?
Okay, so the Black in Engineering recommendations are system-wide faculty, staff, and undergraduate and grad students. And this is the part that I really want to engage with people about as well. So we'll go through these just briefly. So the system-wide pieces, and you'll have to help me with the time. I just want to know how long I have.
We still have, I mean, I try to make it approximately around an hour, so we still have like approximately 24 minutes.
Okay.
But this is not this is not a one-time conversation. So this is something that I hope that the conversation continues beyond just a little chat session, and we try to highlight as much as possible, however we can, to bridge as much as possible and make it less slogans. I mean,
yeah,
this is my platform. Some other people have more executive aspect, but I hope that with just this little bit of platform, we can make some change somewhere.
Absolutely. So let me just go through these. And on the next slide, let's start with just some system-wide initiatives.
All right.
Sorry. Yes. And so we've talked a little bit about historical education, but letting people understand the systems in which we are in, how they were created, how they are biased against certain individuals. And I told you, I'm going to use the word black people in disciplines, particularly in engineering. Only recently have Black people kind of been formally acknowledged within the engineering space. And so particularly women, Black women, that's also something too. And a few years ago, we had less than 150 Black women faculty in engineering, according to ASEE and the data that they collected. And when you think about that, that's really low. And on the video, you saw that we're only 2.4% of engineering faculty. So we still have a lot of work to do, and that needs to be acknowledged as well. We also talked about implicit bias. And the thing that I want to say, in addition to what we've already discussed, is that we want to continue the conversations with implicit bias and diversity trainings. And we want to not just look at that at a surface level, but we want to go deeper into some of the things we talked about. We mentioned commitments and high-level commitments, and that comes from looking at the board of trustees, going all the way to the top of a university to make sure that the message of change comes at that level. We're not just going to outsource it to diversity officers. Accountability is a big thing. And one thing that we would love to see, many of our Black and engineering faculty have talked about, is accountability with our professional societies. We would like to see our statements with them. We would also like to see places such as U.S. News and World Report have diversity rankings and have a way to identify how universities are engaging with anti-racism and how they are eliminating systemic racism. In terms of fundraising, we think that it's important to have money that's devoted to these initiatives. Yes, Ram, at any point. I'm just hitting them.
No. I think that what you just stated is a very, very important point, because most often universities care about ranking. Like, we are rank number 86 in this, or rank number 72. And if there is a way to integrate diversity into these rankings, then some folks that are more financially driven, I mean, some folks, they're not opposed to something, but like it's gonna sound so bad, but there are some people in decision making that they care only about like money and ratings. And by doing so, and by being so focused on, even though they are not racist, and even though they are not, their goal does not require them to check that box, and therefore they alienate whatever. And if you give them a box and you say, hey, to get where you want, this is one of the things you need to achieve, then this can help them. So I think the metric of including something in university rankings, I think that should be a focus point for like how universities appreciate that. I'm gonna go the extra mile, if you allow me.
Yeah.
Like you said an idea that sparked something in me that can help even social justice beyond the United States. I mean, we have people listening to us. This video will end up being watched by a couple thousand at the end of its course from all over the world. And we want to help as much as possible other discrimination that are happening. So, for example, like sexual orientation, there is a massive discrimination for this where I come from. I'm originally from Lebanon. So that's something that having a ranking that creates safe places somehow would force universities, even in other parts of the world, to work on these aspects to achieve a broad social justice.
Yeah, you know what? I think that this is where the truthfulness comes in too, because my thing is, many people don't want to say that they're not good at something. And I think that you need to tell people, like, if this is a place that is unsafe, if this is a place that does not value, a particular type of person, then they need to know. It's just being honest. And, we don't do that. I think right now we kind of have this facade of, oh, we all care about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but but our actions say that we don't. And so one of the goals that I would love to see in higher education is just the truth coming out. If you have not ever had a Black person as a faculty, say it. You know, the questions will be what the questions are, and that's for leadership to answer. But, you know, if someone's having a terrible experience and they've said it, own up to it. Like, that is once again on leadership to address. And the honesty just has to be there. So that's the thing I would start with. And
faculty initiatives. What about some faculty initiatives?
Oh, hold it really quickly. I just wanted to say, just for anyone who wants to read it, once again, this is in the call to action. I just want to, well, I already talked about this a little bit. So yes, you're right. Thank you. You are facilitating. So we talked a little bit about recruitment, but we wanted to talk about retention. It's not just about getting someone in the door. It's about keeping them in the house. So we want to make sure that that is done as well. And that connects back to tokenism a tad bit. I want to also talk about promotion, tenure, and annual review. There's a lot that goes on there, but I think that many people do not know how to evaluate Black faculty, particularly when they are engaging in service activities as the only or the first Black person in a unit. And so we need to redesign and we need to redefine what our promotion, tenure, and review criteria look like so that it acknowledges the work that Black faculty have to do. And we also need to have training so that people understand what that looks like. And you know, Rami, I want to say something that I think is going to be a little bit controversial, but I think this is the place to do it. So this morning I had another conversation and I was talking to another Black faculty, and we talked about how this is really, the promotion and tenure piece is really important to examine and to maybe look at higher levels, like even maybe at federal levels, because this promotion and tenure prevents people from doing good work sometimes. Like if you look at student evaluations, you know, those are used to determine someone's ability to do their job well. But if we have research that says that student evaluations are biased against people of color and Black people, then is that really right to use student evaluations to determine if someone keeps their job? So, you know, there's just a lot out there, and it comes back to systemic racism. What other things are happening that we're being evaluated on, but because of the system, it's not equitable, and you know, we're being penalized and our livelihoods are affected because of someone's biases.
I perfectly
that
understand.
can of worms all the way up.
So I mean, this is not controversial, and this is a topic that that's very, very, very challenging to me. I mean, I should not be saying what I'm gonna say next, but you.
But you're gonna say it, and it's gonna be recorded. Go ahead.
It's recorded. It's gonna be on the web. So honestly, the tenure and promotion system, I don't like it. I don't believe in it. I understand the portion where you're protecting people to speak up their mind, but why would you want to be protected to speak up your mind if you're gonna be in a toxic environment? And if people are everyone is protected in a way, and people can allow themselves to go the extra mile in like hurting others, I feel that the tenure and promotion system starts becoming a counter measurement to what it should be. That's number one, my take. My number two take, and you're gonna get me in trouble here, but you know what? I don't care. I'm gonna say my opinion, and I'm gonna say my life is too short not to say your opinion. The tenure and promotion system for me is so wrong. It's ethically wrong. When you have a tenure and promotion system that says you have to be outstanding in research but excellent in education, when the money of your salary comes from students and their education, but you are saying on a piece of paper that research is more important than teaching where your salary is coming from, for me, that's mind-blowing. This last period, this last period, this last year, I have personally changed the dials in my career. Like I have amplified the education portion much more than the others because students are stressed. Students, there's COVID, there is a pandemic, there is. And yet here we are still with a system that is so clingy and saying, well, if you end up teaching more and doing more for students, there is not going to be a reward for you down the road, because what matters is research, get grants, get money, bring back to the money making machine. So you got me in trouble in here, but that's my opinion.
I didn't at all. You know what? And I think too, like there's also a concern that people have of how COVID will impact people, because I'll also, still use my lens for Black people. And I will say, like, many of us have additional caregiving responsibilities. And so when we're at home taking care of our children and doing some other things like that, like are we going to be penalized because we have to take care of, our families? And I think it's that added pressure that is causing us to question how people are evaluated even more. So
I'm gonna let you know to another.
Yeah, and I just say go back to the document, and so I'm just going to highlight the really big ones. You've already talked about teaching, but when it comes to equity, people want to be paid what they're worth. We talk about pay gaps and disparities, wage disparities based on people's race and gender, and so we need to really evaluate that as well. We need to also make sure that we have research funding that is collaborative and acknowledges the work that we do to bring innovation and diverse voices into an environment. I'll go next, please. So we've broken down so the staff part, we need to make sure also that staff understand diversity. So often we focus on faculty and students at universities, but many of our staff are the people who are the administrators. They're the ones who are processing paperwork. They're the ones who are working directly with students as advisors, and we cannot leave them out of this. And so they need ongoing training and professional development, and give people raises and promotion when they demonstrate the commitment to being anti-racist. We broke down the graduate and the undergrad piece, but it's very similar to some of the things we said for faculty. And some of the things I want to point out, I want to talk about mental health, because I think people don't acknowledge mental health don't acknowledge racism as a mental health issue. But in the same way that we talk about other issues, like racism is stressful. When you hear, like last week, I recall a couple of my colleagues texting me and saying it was hard to concentrate because Jacob Blake had gotten shot 7 times in the back. How do you pretend that everything is okay with you when you're thinking about whether you are safe and how people are being targeted for looking like you? Like, that's mental health. And so our institutions need to increase resources. And when I say resources, it's not just lip service. I'm saying money to say, if we know that systemic racism is happening, why are you not helping the people who have been affected by it? That is stressful. So just putting that out there too.
But that's very important. Mental health is very, very important. So undergraduate student initiatives.
So
you have all the spectrum from faculty, undergraduate students, staff. This is awesome.
Yeah, and once again, it's in the bigger document, but I think I'll just kind of focus on data, preparation for engineering, how we admit people into the discipline, who we admit in the discipline. And I think so often we still have gatekeepers who are saying, Black and brown kids don't belong because they're not prepared. They can't be engineers. They don't have what it takes, and then they're gone. And no, that is so inappropriate, and it needs to stop. So
how to engage?
Yes. And so if you want to get in touch with us, there's a website. There's an email address. And, we want to know more about how to make.
Somewhere here. Yes. This is your email address.
Yes. Like you can go to blackengineeringfacultyspeak@gmail.com with any additional comments. But I do want to say, if we can go back really quickly, I don't know how we could do this, Rami, but I just want people to reflect on these questions. Like, what can be added? What can we do? What thoughts do they have? What's next? How can we help? How can we engage? That's what that is. We'll move to the next slide, please.
So I think the best way we can do this is, so you're at home or at work and listening to this and watching this, and you have access to these questions. I think the best way to start is engage in discussion. Pick one of these questions, try to answer it, send it to Professor Cox, communicate here on the chat. Literally, even after the stream is over, we have access to it. Just make sure to participate in the discussion. And we have Tahira. She put the email Black Engineering Faculty Speak at gmail.com.
Absolutely. So thank you. And this just shows you, we want people to ultimately get to the point where they are reading this, they are sharing it, they are discussing it, they are implementing it, and they are sustaining it. So that's the highest level that we have of action.
I like this. I've never seen this chart of level of action. So Ruby is you read about something in your engagement, your new level of action.
This is the call to action. You read it. Yes.
Emerald is you read it, but you're sharing it as well.
Yes.
Sapphire, I'm gonna use this for a lot of time. So so we want the Onyx level where you read it, you share it, you discuss it, you implement it, and you make sure it is sustainable.
Yes. And our call to action is located at the link that you see up there. So this is how you can help us out across the world. We want you to read the call to action, but if you go there and scroll all the way to the bottom, you can sign the call to action. This lets people know that you are an ally or you are an advocate and you support the work that we are doing, that you want us to move toward being anti-racist in our universities, and these are ways to do so. You can also continue the conversation on email, Twitter. Black in Engineering is something, and you can email me directly as well. So continue the conversation, push. This is my ultimate request on behalf of all of my brothers and sisters who are engaged with this. Please don't let this conversation stop. Please continue to push, continue to make sure that these changes are happening. We are not here to waste time. We are not here just to talk. We don't want to be hashtags. We want change in our lifetime. And this is how it starts. So social justice and engineering, don't let anyone tell you that it should not happen, because it should. And it's overdue.
I join my voice to you, and I definitely support the call to action. And as soon as I go offline, I'm gonna log in and put in my name and sign on it. This is something I fundamentally believe in. So I guess this, let me verify. I guess this is where the slide ends. So, which is perfect because this is just right on time for us to wrap up the conversation. I want to say a couple of things. The first thing is it's been an absolute pleasure to know you as a person, and a pleasure to discuss with you, because you said, we talked at the start of this conversation that the target and the hope is to move a little bit closer to where we need to be. And I feel equipped now with some understanding that just talking about something is not enough. We need to move to the level of sharing, discussing, implementing. So today we're discussing, at least I'm bringing this over. So I hope that somehow, somewhere, I'll be able to implement certain things one day. I want to give you, a closing 1 minute if you'd like to say something.
Yes. First of all, could somebody please take a picture of this, because I will be posting it on social media, this part, and my phone is elsewhere. So I do want to say that, this work is really important work, and I want to acknowledge the people who are doing it, the ones who are getting in good trouble. Many of them are junior faculty. Many of them are people who do not know what it's going to look like to speak up. and to speak out, but I want to acknowledge their bravery. I want to ask people to listen to people when they say that systemic racism is problematic. Listen to them when they say that there are ways to change. Humble yourselves, because I think if we're going to move forward, as a community, we're going to have to do better. And it starts with every person being held accountable, not just the ones who are experiencing the racism. So let's all be brave together.
That's awesome. I like it. Let's all be brave together. Professor Cox, thank you so much, a million times, and I'm looking forward for follow-on conversations and to keep the discussion going. Thank you so much, and have a great weekend.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye. I appreciate it.
And before I leave, I would like from everyone to press that upload button and to actually type a thank you for you on this conversation. So please throw it on the chat box. A big thank you to Professor Cox. Bye-bye. Ciao. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.